Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number.
Watch this carefully, because what starts as a routine question turns into something much bigger. A breakdown in credibility, a loss of control, and a moment that exposes just how shaky the answers really are. You've got Congressman Eric Swalwell stepping in, and right away he's not playing defense. He's going straight at the core issue: transparency, accountability, and whether the Department of Justice is actually being honest about what it knows. And the topic he chooses? The Epstein files. That's not accidental. That's one of the most sensitive, politically explosive subjects you can bring into a hearing like this. Names, associations, power. Everything is wrapped up in that question. So when Swalwell zeroes in on how many times Donald Trump's name appears in those files, he's not just asking for a number. He's testing whether the Attorney General is willing, or even able, to give a straight answer on something that carries massive political consequences. This is where the tension starts building. Because if you're confident, if you've got control of the facts, this is an easy moment. You give a clear answer, you shut it down, and you move on. But that's not what happens. Instead, what you're about to see is hesitation, deflection, and then something even worse: uncertainty on a basic factual question that should already be locked down. And once that happens, the entire dynamic shifts. Swalwell senses it immediately. He doesn't back off, he presses harder. He narrows the question, he forces specificity. And the more he tightens the frame, the more uncomfortable this gets. This is the moment where control starts slipping. Watch how quickly a simple question turns into a problem.
Recognizes the gentleman from California.
Great, thank you. Madam Attorney General, you acknowledged earlier to Mr. Johnson that President Trump was mentioned and the release countless times, you said, in the Epstein files. I just want to play a video, though, for you that I think speaks to the frustration that many of these victims have. Of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released
number at least
anyone's
be 1,000
name
times.
we have not released anyone's
Could it
name in
at
the
least
Epstein
be 1,000
files that
times?
has not been credible.
Director,
And
could it at
we have
least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
you can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number.
I understand.
That right there, that's the kind of exchange that changes the tone of an entire hearing. Swalwell isn't just asking for a number. He's walking her into a corner, step by step. First, he references prior acknowledgement that Trump's name appears multiple times. Then he escalates. Is it 1,000? 500? 100? And notice what he's doing. He's shrinking the range. He's making it easier and easier to answer, and still, nothing. Not just no answer, but I don't know. That's the moment. Because at that point, it's no longer about the number itself. It's about credibility. You're the Attorney General, you're overseeing one of the most scrutinized document releases in recent history, and you can't give even a rough estimate? That doesn't land as caution. That lands as either unprepared or evasive. And Swalwell knows it. You can hear it in the room, the laughter. That's not just reaction, that's recognition. People understand what just happened. The question didn't get answered, and the attempt to avoid it became the story. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Swalwell doesn't stay there. He doesn't just celebrate the stumble. He pivots, and the pivot is strategic, because now he's moving from a question about documents to something much more personal, much more serious. And this is where the hearing stops being about numbers and starts becoming about power, retaliation, and consequences. Watch how fast the tone changes.
I understand why the victims are frustrated. And the Attorney General acknowledged what Mr. Patel would not acknowledge, that it was way more than 1,000 times. But I want to move, Madam Attorney General, to weaponization of government. And yesterday it was reported that 6 members of Congress had indictments sought against him, and they were not returned by a grand jury. My colleagues have spoken about their frustration of being in subpoenas and having cell phone records combed through. Well, in 2017 and 2018, Adam Schiff and I had our cell phone records and email records combed through, not by you, but a different Department of Justice under the president. It was in retaliation for our role in the Russia interference campaign. An inspector general report would find this improper and that the predicate for it was absurd. In 2020, after sitting on 2 committees that were a part of the president's first impeachment, an FBI agent leaked my cooperation in a national security case where my campaign was targeted. The president's FBI senior leadership authorized 2 statements to the press that said I was never suspected of wrongdoing and only helped the investigation. But that didn't stop the death threats or my GOP colleagues from referring me to an ethics investigation where Kevin McCarthy's chairman on the ethics committee would find the same thing as the FBI. Our current FBI director would then write a book called Government Gangsters and identify a long list of enemies. About a quarter of them have been either investigated or indicted. He listed me at the very top, along with Adam Schiff, and during that same testimony, refused to recuse himself when asked if he would recuse if any case came across his desk involving me or people on that list. Since that testimony, his department has put me under investigation with Senator Schiff for the nonsense mortgage fraud cases that we've seen. I get it. This is what the president does. I've priced it in. We have a bingo card at home that my kids have made of what will come next. I expected that the president would come after his enemies. But what I want to talk to you next is serious, and I did not expect this would happen, and I'd like your help on it. The president has inspired death threats against me and many sitting up here with me. In June 2025, an individual left 11 voicemails at my district office. On the voicemails, they said, "Get the message to him. I'm gonna hunt him down, that motherfucker, and toss his ass over the Golden Gate Bridge by my fucking self." Donald Trump's Department of Justice in the Northern District of California declined to prosecute. On May 14, 2025, on Twitter, responding to something I posted, an individual said, "No, it wasn't Eric, and now I'm going to kill you." The Department of Justice from the Southern District of Texas declined to prosecute. May through December of 2025, we received messages at my office that said, "I hope somebody shoots you and your children and your wife in the head. Pew, pew, motherfucker, pew, pew." I would stay indoors as much as possible, and my children, unfortunately, have to do that. The Department of Justice has not charged this individual and cited that he's a prolific caller and has health conditions, although what we have found in our own investigation and his voicemails is that he has said he will employ others to do this. The president can come after me. It's fine. I'm in the arena. So are these folks. But we never expected that the Department of Justice would not seek to prosecute and investigate those who are making threats against us. And that would include those on that side of the aisle. And I'm just asking for your help to protect life, because life is at risk with the environment we're in right now.
Congressman, I completely agree with you. I know about several of those personally involving you. I believe one has been charged publicly, and there's something I would be happy to talk to you about off camera, but I can assure you that they are very serious. They are being looked into, and I can give you more details on those. None of you should be threatened, ever. None of your children should be threatened. None of your families should be threatened. And I will work with, you can come into my office any day. I will work with all of you on both sides of the aisle if you are ever threatened. And I'll gladly talk to you after this hearing about your cases. But I can tell you some of them are very active.
Appreciate that. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and we're sorry for...
This is where everything escalates, and it's not subtle. Swalwell shifts from policy to personal experience, but not in a way that softens the moment. He sharpens it. He lays out a timeline, investigations, surveillance, public smears, and then something even darker, threats against his life and his family. And listen to how he frames it. He's not saying this came out of nowhere. He's connecting it directly to political targeting, to rhetoric, to an environment that he argues has been fueled from the top down. That's a serious accusation, not just of misconduct, but of consequences. And then he goes further. He reads the threats out loud. Word for word. Violent, explicit, impossible to ignore. That changes the energy in the room instantly. Because now it's not abstract, it's not theoretical, it's real, it's personal, and it's happening now. And then comes the key point, the one that hits hardest. He says the Department of Justice declined to prosecute. Multiple times. That's the pressure point. That's what turns this from a personal story into an institutional critique. Because now the question isn't just, are threats happening? It's, why aren't they being acted on? And notice how he positions himself. He says, I expected the president would come after his enemies. That's already a loaded statement. But then he contrasts that with something he didn't expect, that the DOJ would fail to act on threats. That's the accusation. Not just political targeting, but a failure of protection. And in that moment, he flips the script. He's no longer just a questioner. He's presenting himself as someone under threat, demanding accountability from the very system that's supposed to provide it. Now watch the response. The Attorney General doesn't challenge the premise. She doesn't dispute the threats. Instead, she acknowledges them, says they're serious, and offers to discuss details off camera. That's important because it de-escalates the confrontation publicly, but it doesn't directly answer the core criticism: why weren't these cases prosecuted? So what you end up with is a split-screen moment. On one side, a congressman laying out a narrative of targeting, threats, and inaction. On the other, an attorney general expressing concern, offering cooperation, but not directly resolving the central issue in that exchange. And that leaves a gap. And in politics, gaps like that don't stay neutral. They get filled by perception. For supporters of Swalwell, this looks like validation, that something is wrong, that the system isn't responding the way it should. For critics, it might look like an emotional appeal without full context. But inside that room, in that moment, the momentum clearly shifts. Because from the point where Bondi couldn't answer a basic question to this extended, detailed account of threats and inaction, she's no longer controlling the exchange. She's reacting to it. And that's the through line of this entire hearing segment. It starts with a credibility crack, a simple question that doesn't get answered. And it ends with a much bigger challenge, not about numbers, but about whether the system itself is functioning the way it's supposed to under pressure. That's why this moment sticks. It's not just one question. It's a chain reaction. A missed answer leads to a loss of footing, which opens the door for a much more damaging line of attack. And once that door is open, the entire tone of the hearing changes. If you want more breakdowns like this where powerful people get pressed on the record, hit subscribe and drop your take in the comments. Who do you think came out stronger in this hearing, and what was the one moment that changed the whole exchange?